And one of the things that we've seen in the security situation, I'm a Palisadian. I'm also Lieutenant Colonel in the Army and work in special operations, and then I'm a local businessman. So what I saw is we have a great population here. We have amazing people in law enforcement and CLEOs and in first responders. And we want to try to, as fellow people who serve our nation and wear the uniform, we're not law enforcement, but we could facilitate. So we have a beautiful building. We have a great communication system all set up here. And so we've been trying to do what we can to connect the community with law enforcement. We had Captain Tom from West LA Division came out and gave a really neat speech, a description of how they police. We had LASD host, the homeless task force came out and gave us an awesome discussion on how they work with the homeless. All of this to educate all of my neighbors on what law enforcement is doing, what their capabilities are, and so also give our neighbors the opportunity to communicate with law enforcement. And so one of the other things we did is I came up with this card, which has contact information from everything from emergency to fire, animal control. Very important is psych services. And just so people get an understanding of what law enforcement provides in psych services, and what the county provides in psych services. So please do not change any of your phone numbers that are on this, because you don't want to reprint this. But we mailed this out to every household in the Palisades. So we're really proud. I'm really honored to have Miriam decide to bring the PPCC here. This is awesome leaps forward. We've done first aid here. We've done a tactical emergency casualty care active shooter training here that was open to civilians and law enforcement. We're hoping to get maybe get an LAPD to do a citizens academy here, and maybe to do some shoot no shoot simulators. Anything we can do to educate you guys and educate them as to what your needs are. That's what the Legion's here for. So again, thank you for letting me speak. Jim, Craig, if you have any issues, any questions, happy to have Kevin and I are always happy to help you all out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Having us, and you also had the drone pilot training here.
Yes, if you want to get licensed as a drone operator and increase your security situation, we're doing that too.
There we go. And we're going to bring drones up too. All right, so for the benefit of the Zoom audience, again, this is being recorded. It'll be posted onto our PPCC website. I thank American Legion again. So I'm going to open it up to our guests who, the various city agencies who've agreed to join us. We are grateful. Thank you for being willing to be here. I'm just going to introduce everyone. And then, as I've promised, I'm going to give everyone about 2 minutes to tell us about their role and what they do as a city agency that's tasked with protecting Pacific Palisades. And then we're going to have some follow-up questions for them. And then I'll open it up to the audience. I know Captain Nassour from Brush Clearance at LAFD has a PowerPoint presentation for us that I think everyone will find very interesting. So we'll watch that and then we'll get into questions. So first at the table is Claudia Martin. She's the neighborhood prosecutor for Pacific Division. She works closely with someone you all hopefully know, or at least her name sounds familiar, Veronica de la Cruz Robles, who is our neighborhood prosecutor. She's been a friend of the Palisades for a long time. She's been coming and going to PPCC meetings for a while. I always say that our first Pacific Palisades Task Force on Homelessness community meeting, where we were just beginning to launch the task force, and people in the community had a lot of questions, weren't really sure they wanted to see the task force happen. One of the first meetings that was an overflow crowd in the library and was very, very helpful was the enforcement meeting that Veronica helped us set up so that people could come and ask their questions and understand how a task force on homelessness might be helpful. And famously, we'll hear from Sharon today. It was very helpful and it turned into a big success. So we'll hear more about that, but thank you for being with us, Claudia. From LA Park Rangers, Joseph Fuentes, thank you for joining us. Captain SLO, Matt, Senior Lead Officer, Matt Kirk from Brentwood, thank you for coming. Captain Heredia, Captain 3 at LAPD West. Sergeant Scott Albert, LAPD West. Our SLO for the Palisades, Brian Espin. Sharon Kilbride, co-president of the Pacific Palisades Task Force on Homelessness, but famously also the very first person who 7 years ago, helped us figure out how to get the task force on homelessness up and running, at least the ground game. Kristen Lee, thank you for joining us from Los Angeles City Board of Engineering. She's been spearheading the construction project at Pochera Canyon. Michael Amster, Field Deputy for Tracy Park, CD11. And I'm very happy to introduce Brian Nassour to everyone, Captain Brian Nassour from LAPD Brush Clearance. FD Brush Clearance. Thank you for being here. All right, Claudia, we will start with you. Please tell us what the Office of the Neighborhood Prosecutor does and tell us how you interface with LAPD.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I am Veronica De La Cruz's counterpart at Pacific Division. So as neighborhood prosecutors, we work closely with the community. We're actually housed inside of our police division. So Veronica is housed at West LA Division. And what we do is basically, once we work with our enforcement partners, so once they go out there and they do enforcement, they then in turn return the cases to our office, to us, and we review them. So we vertically prosecute cases. So we don't handle all of the cases in our division because that obviously is a lot of cases. We rely on our counterparts at the branch. But what we do is we handle the quality of life issues and the cases that affect entire communities. So I know Veronica works closely, obviously, with the community here, and I know here one of the things is I always mess it up, the high fire severity zone.
Very high.
Very, yes, it's very important, very. So she handles those cases for our office. And one of the things that we do, whether it's Pacific Division, West LA, or wherever, is we know that there's a lot of outreach happening in the community. So what we try to do is once cases are presented to us and we file those cases, we obviously a lot of times will ask for a stay away as a probation condition. But in addition to that, we will try to weave in whatever services are being offered in the field as part of the probation condition as well. So it's not one of those things where once we file a case, it's just criminal nature, just punitive. We also try to get the individual connected to whatever services that that individual needs. In addition, we also recognize the public safety aspect of it. So we always ask for a stay away from the location. And this is a tool that LAPD can then use if for some reason the individual comes back into that area. So another thing that we do is we work closely, like I said, with everyone to try to figure out if it's not criminal in nature, to come up with the solution for all stakeholders in the community. It might be for environmental design types of changes, in addition to, law enforcement working with the social service providers. So we do a lot of collaboration and coordination because we obviously recognize we can't solve this. We're not working in silos. So by coordinating, collaborating with a bunch of different, with everybody here at the table and several others, is when we can get some positive results. So I'm very happy to be here and thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, Joseph Fuentes from LA Park Rangers.
Hello, everyone. Officer Joseph Fuentes with the LA City Park Rangers. And what we normally do is we address quality of life issues in all the city parks. For the park rangers in general, we normally patrol all the regional parks, such as Griffith Park, Hanson Dam, Elysian Park. My partner and I, Joshua Smith in the back of the room, we're coming out of the Harbor region in San Pedro. So those parks, Ken Malloy, Point Furman, we go ahead and regularly patrol those sides of the parks. In regards to the other additional 450 parks that are around the city of Los Angeles, we there's a lot of parks. We only have 30 rangers that are on staff right now, so it's very difficult for us to be patrolling regularly at these parks. But when we go ahead and visit all the community centers and all the recreation centers, we encourage the community to utilize the 311 app or call 311 if, for example, some quality of life issues, smoking, drinking, or again, homelessness is a very a big issue right now. Our park ranger team, we have developed 2 bid teams to go ahead and address the homeless issue. And what that normally is that when there are homeless individuals that are occupying very high severity zones, we have to go ahead and assess the area, make sure they have the adequate resources that they need before we can properly remove them and relocate them if they choose to. But again, it's a very difficult process. We understand the frustration in the community, but once you go ahead and put out service requests through the 311 app. We only have 2 teams within our park ranger agency to address all the regions in the city of Los Angeles. But again, if you have any other further questions, I could give you a certain phone numbers and resources. But again, we encourage the community to utilize that 311 phone number and application.
Thank you. We'll have some follow-up questions for you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Okay, SLO Matt Kirk from Brentwood. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Matt Kirk, senior lead for Brentwood area, and senior lead, what I do is I'm the liaison between the Brentwood community and LAPD. So a lot of people, patrol guys go out, answer radio calls. They don't have the time to spend a lot of time in explaining the issues in the neighborhood, whether it's quality of life issues, homeless issues, traffic issues, all those things. Anybody's any questions from the Brentwood community, they email to me or call me, and I try and decipher the information, get to the root of the problem and try to handle it for them. So that's my basic job in a nutshell, and I enjoy it very much.
Thank you. And how long have you been SLO for Brentwood?
For Brentwood, about almost 3 years. I've been a SLO since 2008. I've been in West LA since 2002. So obviously I enjoy the community as a whole, and I'm not going anywhere.
We're happy to have you. And I also want to say Brentwood Community Council chair is in the audience. Thank you, Carolyn, for being here. Oh, the whole Brentwood Community Council contingent is in the audience.
Yes, we are.
And Jimmy Kim is here from Apollo Security, so we'll come around to you. All right, Captain Heredia, thank you so much for joining us. Captain 3 for West LA.
You're welcome. It's good to be here. My name is Craig Heredia, and I have the privilege of being the commanding officer of West LA Station. I moved into West LA in January of last year as the patrol captain, and worked in partnership with John Tom, who was the previous area commanding officer. In October, he was promoted to commander and moved to West Bureau. And at that point in time, Chief Moore promoted me to Captain 3 and allowed me to stay in this division. So the way that the police department works is we have 21 geographic stations. West LA is one of them. And we have 4 bureaus throughout the entire city of LA. West Bureau has several stations: West LA, Hollywood, Olympic, Pacific, and Wilshire, right? So there are 5 stations in West Bureau. West LA is one of them. So I have the privilege of managing all of West LA for Chief Moore. And with that, my responsibilities are overseeing all policing, to include the patrol assets, responding to calls for service, detective operations, investigations, the gang impact team, which includes the gang enforcement detail, the narcotics enforcement detail, the vice unit, and also overseeing Scott Alpert and the community relations office, where he oversees, the senior lead officers and the community relations officers. So I have a lot, but I have a solid team that I get to work with. And I'm just really happy to be here, and I'll save the rest for questions.
So quickly, you are the captain, so you're the commanding officer for the West LA station, right? And then
Yes.
there's a Pacific station.
Correct.
Okay, so I just want to tell everybody what we think of as the West Side region. So the West Side Regional Alliance of Councils, which includes 14 neighborhood and community councils. I keep looking at Chris because I need a nod. 14, right? 14 neighborhood and community councils. Part of some of them are in your West LA command, and some of them are in Pacific Division command, right? So West LA and Pacific kind of oversee this area that we all loosely think of as West Side, right? As the West Side of Los Angeles.
Yes, and West LA is a huge geographic division. We have 65 square miles that we cover, just shy of it actually. And so, we have the Pacific Palisades, Brentwood, Bel Air, all the way down to Sawtelle, Japantown, and then all the way over east to Pico Robertson. We cover a lot of area.
And Claudia, you're Pacific, so you are also overseeing communities in the West Side of LA.
Right, so our division is underneath, underneath the 10 freeway, so half of it is Pacific, right? And then the other half is West LA.
Got it. So you're right next door. So a lot of our issues are probably common and familiar.
Very much.
Okay, and Sergeant Scott Alpert, thank you for
Yes,
joining.
thank you. Thanks for grabbing me here. First of all, as Captain talked about, I'm in charge of the community relations office over at West LA. Captain's my basically immediate boss. So the great thing about our community relations office is that we answer action battery to the Captain 3, which is Captain Heredia, which is very unique in that way because we take community issues so seriously, right? So in my office, we have not only the senior lead officers, Matt and Brian over here, but also the beach detail. Jose Bermudez is actually the P3. He's in charge of that detail and he does a great job and really collaborates with us as well as we hear about it, we go on with Sharon and so forth. Also out of my office, we have the volunteer program. So we have actually citizens that go through the Citizen Academy, which Jim was talking about earlier, and then they can actually drive around our BMWs. And then they collaborate with our office as well. If they see something on the radio, then they can tell us and then we can respond out there. So that's a great program. And then we also have the reserve officers that also work out of my office. So we have kind of a lot of entities working out of the relations office, but they're collaborating together not only with me, but also with SLOs and so forth. We kind of work together as a team. So it's really a benefit to the community.
So when you say community relations, does that mean that you're answerable to the community or you just manage the elements that deal with the community within LAPD?
So great question. So I answer the community as well as the people in my office. And then also I didn't talk about the youth service officers, which are kids programs, our cadets programs, they're in our office as well. Which is also a benefit because then we'll take some, some kids that may be going down the wrong path. And it's a leadership program and kind of steer them on that path. So now when they hit that age where they're ready to either go to college or the military or to get a really good job, that's their ultimate goal. But yes, I do oftentimes answer questions to community members. I help fill in, let's say, if it's slow on a day off, and I can get that message in, and I can handle it, or I'll work, with the team, because I was a former SLO myself over in Southeast, so I have that background of actually being a senior lead officer and having experience working with the neighborhood prosecutors, working with all the entities. So having that background has kind of made easier for me to slide into that position.
Okay, thank you. Officer Bermudez, I just want to acknowledge that the very important beach detail that's so important to this community. Officer Bermudez leads that detail, so thank you for being here. In case anybody doesn't know him. And also in the audience is Jasmine Dolat-Shahi, who is the park director. It's Palisades Rec Center park director, and Ventura Canyon is famously under her command or under her watch. Okay. Senior lead officer, Brian Espin.
How you guys doing? So I'm the senior lead officer out here for the Pacific Palisades, if you don't already know. As my partner, Slow Kirk said, we are the community relations. We handle all the long-term quality of life issues in the community. So say, for example, your neighbor's having a loud party or your car gets broken into, you call the police, the patrol officers come out, take the report. But let's say your neighbor's constantly having the parties every weekend, your car's constantly getting broken into every weekend. That's when we as senior lead officers, we get involved, we meet with our detectives and we try to come up with strategies and different ways to either mitigate or get rid of the problem. Sometimes we can be successful and get rid of the problem. A lot of times it's a lot of just mitigating. But we are the go-to people for the community. So like my partner said, whatever issues, concerns you guys have, you bring to our attention, and then we try to work out different solutions, different problem to work through it. As Sergeant Alpert said earlier, that he's in charge of the community relations section. You can reach out to him, but we honestly prefer that if there's an issue within the community, we reach out to us directly to the senior lead officer. So one, we're aware of it, but then also we have an opportunity to work because we're a little bit more familiar with our areas. So you can reach out to Sergeant Alpert or Captain Heredia. But I encourage everybody, just reach out to your senior lead first, and then we will try to work through the problem or see what we can do. That's pretty much in a nutshell what I do. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
Uh-oh.
Sharon Gilbert.
Hello, everybody. I want to congratulate this LAPD team because in recent article I just read on the statistics for crime in all of Los Angeles, the Pacific Palisades was the lowest crime in all of the city. So it's because of this leadership under Captain Heredia and the beach detail, and the whole team is fabulous. So we're very fortunate to have them here working with all of us. So we're lucky. Getting on to me, I am the co-chair of the Pacific Palisades Task Force on Homelessness. I've been doing this since about 2014, and we've done great work. You probably all remember, people that go back that far, that our hillsides were loaded with about 120 encampments that were active. And I see many of you in the room that suffered through that while we cleaned them up, and we had several fires. I can tell you now that pretty much the Palisades is very much camp-free because of the work that the task force and LAPD and the citizens who report things to us have really helped with the safety of the community. On another note, we have an amazing outreach team. We have 3 dedicated employees from the people concerned that are out there 4 days a week, engaging our homeless. And what I do is I am the lead for a team called the Volunteer Response Team. And that's 9 dedicated volunteers, community members that go out in their areas of where they live and engage incoming homeless. In 2022, our team, my team, engaged 617 new incoming homeless individuals coming into the Palisades and offered them services. We also cleaned up 370 abandoned encampments in the area. So there's a lot of work that's being done. We have permanently housed 109 individuals since our inception in 2016, when we hired the team from the people concerned. And we've also got 168 individuals off the streets in some form of housing. So we are very successful. And we will continue to restructure our group and keep this still a working format with the outreach team and the volunteer response team going forward. We have an amazing volunteer base, and we need the community to step up to continue this work going forward into 2024. So if you want to volunteer, this is Uncle Sam saying we need you, and we really do. So step up, come help us, and it's very rewarding. And we have an amazing group of volunteers that are out there daily engaging and helping people to get them off the streets. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Okay, and Kristen Lee, thank you so much for being here, Board of Engineering, LA City, and you've been overseeing the construction portion of Potrero Canyon. Once you're finished, you will hand this over to RAP that has a maintenance contract coming, right?
That's
So
correct.
for now, we're still in the construction phase, which is good to know, and tell us a little bit.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Lai. I'm with the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Engineering. I'm the project manager, as Miriam said, for the Potrero Canyon or George Wolford Park at Potrero Canyon landscaping phase. The phase itself is about 95% complete to date, and the upper portion of the canyon is open to the public. The remaining portion, or 5% down in the PCH, is estimated to complete by the end of spring this year. And I'm available for any technical questions.
So I'm going to come back around for questions, but just quickly, that remaining 5% that you're talking about becoming available towards the end of spring, that's up to the gate that would presumably then be the lateral trail, right? So you're saying after the Rhino Gate, below that, there's still park that's being completed.
Yes, in terms of park land, most people will not be walking down there. We're finishing up construction of the pump station that will recycle water back.
Okay, so the usable portion of Potrero Canyon is already open.
Correct.
Okay, great. And have the rains or the wetness set you back? Would you have been done by now, or was there a setback?
It was a little bit setback just because we couldn't construct anything during the rains. But overall, we're pleased with how the canyon has held up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for opening it. Michael Amster, CD11 Field Deputy for Brentwood and Pacific Palisades.
Hi, everyone. So my name is, as Miriam said, my name is Michael, and I'm a field deputy for Councilwoman Tracy Park. There's 3 field deputies currently in our office, and I cover Pacific Palisades as well as Brentwood and West LA Sawtell. And in that capacity, I deal with a lot of people, and every single day I'm dealing with something in the realm of public safety, community safety, all its ways and forms. I'm dealing with something about safety every single day. And I guess and looking forward to meeting all of you if I haven't mentioned yet, and I'm certainly engaged with many of you in something involving public safety in some sort of capacity. And I just want to say just one little thing. One of the things that I'm enjoying a lot, particularly about this capacity I'm in right now, is bringing together departments to schedule cleanups in certain areas, bringing in a sanitation, police, and everyone to clean up certain areas. When these cleanups happen, a lot of people reach out to me and they lament that, okay, if you're gonna clean this up, the homeless people are gonna come right back and they're just gonna repopulate it. And I understand those concerns, but I always reply back respectfully, yes, I understand those concerns, but at the same time, this is our city and we need to take ownership of it. And if we just leave these things to continue, then we create situations that are unsafe for people. I think that there's a lot of appreciation that comes when we bring the departments together to clean up areas, and it's one of the things that I'm especially proud of as I'm serving in this role as field deputy, and look forward to answering your questions and speaking to you further.
Thank you, Michael. Captain Nassour, thank you for joining us from LAFD Brush Clearance.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Brian Nassour. I work for the Los Angeles City Fire Department Brush Clearance Unit in the Fire Prevention Bureau. Currently, I oversee the entire fire severity zone that's encompassing the west side, San Fernando Valley, Mount Washington, all the way down to the San Pedro area. That's roughly over 154,000 parcels, not including government parcels. So a little busy. As you can tell, we're getting into the brush season. So, but I'm here. I have a presentation that I want to give you a little introduction, as well as just education on what we do, what is the responsibility of you as homeowners in the very high fire severity zone. And at the same time, if more or less, if you find yourself in a non-compliance issue, what are the ramifications that's going to be held to you for not only for yourself, but also for the other constituents and neighbors that you are living with. So I'll pass it on to him, but I'll give you a further presentation information.
Yeah, I actually probably should have gone to Jimmy Kim first and then come to you so you could launch right into your presentation, which I've queued up and I can share. So Apollo Security is a private security agency, everyone. Jimmy Kim is the director. Sharon was kind enough to tell us to have Jimmy join us, partly because I asked for us to be made aware of how it is that the private security agencies interface with the public security agencies in the Palisades. So do you want to give us a little glimpse?
Sure. So my name is Jimmy Kim. I'm the owner of Apollo Applications Group. So we are a private security firm. I've serviced, we have been servicing the Palisades, Brentwood, and Westwood area probably for the past 5 years. Our people engage in basic patrol of neighborhoods. So neighborhoods like Santa Monica Canyon, Lower Rustic Canyon, Boca area, El Medio Bluffs, Brentwood area, Westwood. We provide response to pretty much just about anything that our clients would ask us to. They have a homeless problem, alarm activations, break-ins, disturbances. Sharon's been an absolute godsend to us when coming into contact with homeless, which is almost a daily occurrence for us. Instead of just asking them to leave the area and go somewhere else, we're able to actually refer them to help with Sharon, and she's done a wonderful job getting them off the streets and getting them into housing and getting them the help that they need, that I'm sure that they don't know is out there for them. We have roughly 5 cars out in a given time on patrol 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we run into pretty much, you name it, different types of burglaries, petty crimes, things like that, everything that we can refer on over. Prior to you, sir, Captain, I believe we worked with Captain John Tom, and it was absolutely wonderful. And look forward to working with you as well. So there, I'll just pass that.
Okay. So just a quick question for you. You send your cars out to patrol on demand? I mean, because someone asks, or?
So the cars patrol dedicated areas. So for example, if we break down an LAPD area, an RD reporting district, as we would call it, 824 has one dedicated patrol car to that tiny little area. And the car just stays in that area, patrols that area on a regular given basis. Since we have our clients there and our set clients, we know what belongs, what doesn't belong. I guess you could say it's more of a compressed patrol area as opposed to anything larger.
Okay, and I also want to acknowledge that another big player on the private security front is Gates Patrol, Gate Security. Scott Wagonseller, hopefully many of you know him. He's been around forever. I know a lot of communities rely on him in his service. We invited them to join us as well. I think Scott's out of town. But if, if he has anything to share, he sends it to me, I will share it with the community. So going back around, Brian, I'm gonna go over to, what?
Which Brian?
Oh, yeah, true. Which Brian? Brian with an I or Brian with a Y? Hang on one second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Wait, going back to the neighborhood prosecutor, I am just wondering, we talked to Veronica about this all the time as well. Claudia, I just want to sort of understand, if LAPD arrests someone and it comes to your desk and you're prosecuting and you suggest that there be some sort of restraining order so that this person doesn't come back to the community, A, what are your criteria? And B, what are the chances that you can actually keep them away? I mean, I'm not going to characterize it. I don't know if it's incarceration or some other way, but how successful are you in being able to keep people away from communities when the crime is quality of life and it's a misdemeanor and it's a low level crime?
So the way it works is the stay away condition is attached to the probation. So the individual would have to be convicted and on probation for that stay away condition to apply. Once that is issued to the court, it's basically a court order, the individual to stay away from the location. That's from Pacific, I can just give it, mine would be stay away from from Venice Beach. Here would be stay away from, let's say, Will Rogers or whatever boundary area. Once we get that information, we forward it over to our LAP, our law enforcement partners, so that they're aware of who has received a stay away. So the way it works is once they're on probation, if they're in violation of the probation by being in that area, then LAPD can basically arrest somebody for basically violating their probation. So if that happens, then they can be booked, and then we get another report, and then we can file a probation violation. Now, historically, the way it's worked is if individuals know that our LAPD partners are aware that they're not supposed to be in a certain location, a lot of times they will move along and not try to come back. But, we've had situations where folks, they tend to like to go back to where they came from or where they're arrested, and they'll come back. So sometimes it's taken a couple of, law enforcement contacts for them to either say, you know what, I'm tired of going downtown or somebody's or the jail to get booked. I'm done with this, and they won't come back. And we've also been successful where at that point, they're open to get services. And I've seen it several times where they're like, okay, fine, what do you have for me? And we're like, you could get connected to services. You can go here. Do you want to keep getting arrested? So it all depends. And we have been successful, Veronica and myself, in the stay away with that tool. Because, for instance, if it's at the very zone, merely being there is a violation. But there's others where you would have to, LAPD or park rangers would have to see a new crime being committed. But if someone is ordered to stay away from a park, them merely being in that park in and of itself is the violation. The law enforcement no longer has to sit there and watch for the individual to commit a new crime, because merely being in that area in and of itself is a violation. So that's a really important tool that they have. So we have been successful. Obviously, like I said, not everyone is the same. Some folks, creatures of habit, will come back, but eventually folks sometimes get tired.
And do they get services downtown or wherever it is that you book them? Is there an offer of services down there, just like there is presumably up here?
So I have reviewed Veronica's cases because we cover for each other. So if the individual is from this area, I see where in the offer, it's 12 months probation, stay away from the location, and she'll put the boundary, and it'll say connect with OPCC. Obviously in an area that's not in, where they're ordered to stay away. For me, I work with St. Joseph Center because that's in my beach area. So I will say you can connect with St. Joseph Center. Here's the info, very similar to this, but it has all the list of the service providers. And because we're in court and we're closely with the public defenders and they know what we do, they'll come up to us and ask for, and we'll tell them where they can go and get services if their client so chooses. So it's basically where they're located. Now, if they want to relocate somewhere else, we can help them. We're more than happy to try to connect to a provider in the area of their choosing.
Okay, so there's a slew of services. And is there still that offer of expunging offenses if they take services or if they engage with services?
Diversion is how we call it. So is what we do a lot of times is because we handle obviously these quality of life crimes. This doesn't apply necessarily to violent crimes and other things like that, but for these types of, trespassing or being at the beach or what we do is say, hey, if you're connected to services and if you stay away from the location and they're not, no more contact with law enforcement, then we are willing to dismiss the case. Because there's no point in having some, with the criminal record, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, for the individual to get services and to not come back to the location. Because we work closely with the providers, we have a great relationship where we can call, the provider and say, so-and-so, this is what we're doing with this individual, with John Doe. Has he met with you? Has he or she, what's going on? And they report back and they'll say, yes, we're on the path, they need an ID or whatever. And at the same time, we'll call our SLO partners and say, have you seen John Doe back? Is there a problem? And they'll confirm the info, come back to court, and we'd like nothing more than to ask the court, we tell the court, the person's doing great, they're no longer, on the streets, they're housed. So we'd ask the court to dismiss this case, and that's what we do a lot of times.
Thank you. All right, so for park rangers, I have a follow-up question for you, and that is that there was a motion that has made its way through city council and has, it was basically the motion that made it official that Potrero Canyon Park was an unattended park that would open at sunrise and close at sunset. That's what city council affirmed. At the bottom of that motion was a request for ranger support. So there was a request for rangers to monitor the park. And the reason why, well, part of the reason why is because the community asked, but theoretically, the reason why is that Potrero Canyon is not monitored. There is no park office there, and there are no people who are walking around. It's a passive park. The doors open at sunrise. The trilogy locks unlock, presumably if they work correctly at sunrise, and they lock at sundown. And in the meantime, there's no one there. Once they lock, nobody really knows until we get our drone program going. Nobody knows if there's anyone inside the park. So we've requested, and both past city council member and current city council member put in the motion a request for rangers to sort of be around and monitor the park. Has that reached you? Have you heard of that? Or are you guys up here? Other than that?
Personally, I can't answer that. I would have to refer you to my captain, my chief. I haven't heard any type of motion on that. But for us in general, for our regular patrols, again, we only patrol the regional parks, the larger parks within the city of Los Angeles, in the Metro Valley and the Pacific region. But unfortunately, I would have to refer you to my captain and my chief.
Okay, so maybe the key is to be a regional park, to be designated as a regional park.
I believe so.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so I don't see Captain Nasur until I do. Matt Kirk. Okay, oh, thank you. Okay, so let me just go down the line. Matt Kirk, question. The Pacific Palisades Community Council and the Brentwood Community Council recently formed a joint committee to talk about all the things that are common, so issues upon which we have commonality. The reason we did it, chief among them, is the cookies dispensary. So between our two communities, there are 9 locations that have been affirmed to be able to host dispensaries. There's one in the community. It has already had 2 break-ins, and I understand people are not overjoyed about it. So we would like the city to give us, our 2 communities, our 2 councils, an opportunity to review these permits before they're granted. From now on, the cookies is currently operating under a provisional permit. So I think in August it's up for review, and if it is affirmed, it'll be no longer provisional. A, can you tell us what's going on around there? I mean, has it been operating safely? Has there been any change? And B, do you and Brian talk about some of the common issues that the 2 communities face? Would you be able to sort of tell our committee what some of those issues are?
The issues, I have a relationship with the businesses there. There's 2 businesses in particular that are joined up right so they have a view.
I'm gonna stop you 1 second. One of our board members who's listening from home says it's really hard for the owl to pick up sound, so I think we all have to use the mic. We pick up the mic and see if it works. I'll start using this. Yeah, great, thank you.
As far as the cookies, I have a good working relationship. I have the manager that runs the cookies there, so if I have any issues that I get from the adjoining businesses, and I immediately reach out and I have fairly quick response with the manager of the place. The biggest issues I've had so far, aside from the business itself getting broken into 2 different times when they initially opened, aside from that, the main issues I have that I've gotten complaints regarding are people smoking the marijuana in the Country Mart shopping center in the parking lot. And then I've had a few complaints after hours. Cookies closes, I believe, at 9 o'clock after hours. There's people loitering around there. So I've reached out I just emailed the manager about 4 days ago, relaying the complaints I've had from the businesses in the adjoining area right there. And basically, they have to abide by the guidelines that are instituted by, I believe, the California Cannabis Commission that oversees those. As far as our narcotics unit, when I spoke to them, if people over 18 are smoking marijuana, there's not a lot of enforcement that they can do, but it's the violations could add up. And then when I contact, because I've recently, people have videotaped what's been going on there, so I'm gonna get a hold of those videos. I have a contact at the commission. I'm gonna forward those videos to them showing the violations. There's signs posted that say no use of marijuana on the premises, and obviously these people are doing it right outside of other businesses, and it's starting to affect those businesses. So when that starts to happen, that's when it's serious to me to put those videos out, and then the commission will come out, and whether they levy fines or when it's up for renewal, they may not renew them because of the issues that are brought about.
I wonder if you'll get a chance to put your commentary into the renewal process. We might want to find out.
I'd be happy if that's something, if I needed to be there, I would have no problem.
Okay, and then what is it? Is it, I remember us talking about this. I believe that people can't consume what they purchase at Cookies within like 250 feet of the front door
I
or
don't know
something,
the
which
exact
basically means the entire
But
parking lot.
any of the areas remotely right around that area, they
So
should
in that
be-
Country Mart park,
Exactly, and then the
shopping
back
center.
parking lot, which is, I guess, south there, because I know the security there. And I told them if you see any issues with it, because they had a couple of dumpster fires that I don't believe were directly related to Cookies. It was a homeless issue, but they reached out to me and showed me video, and I forwarded that to detectives. But I do have a good working relationship, so any stuff that's in violation with regards to the Cookies business, they let me know, and I immediately contact the manager of that.
Excellent.
Obviously, they want to stay open.
Right.
But if it continues to be a problem, then when that comes up for renewal, maybe that won't happen. I'm not 100% sure, but there are small issues that have arisen for that location.
Okay, and then just so you two bear in mind, we do now have a joint committee, so issues that come up that seem to be common between the two communities, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, Brian's desk is right across from me, so.
Excellent, okay. So Captain Heredia, give me a second. I'm gonna go over to Captain Nassour. I'm gonna do my best to share this screen and have him walk us through. Larry, are you still here? I'm gonna have him walk us through this.
I'm gonna stand. I do better when I stand and walk and talk instead of sitting down. You guys know.
Actually pretty unimpressed with my screen right now.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, now you're shifting things.
Could be bigger.
Can you click on that right there?
Show me again.
That right there? You're on. Start the slideshow. There you go. There we go. So as you remember, Captain Brian Nassour from Los Angeles City Fire Department. I manage the brush clearance unit within the Fire Prevention Bureau. My unit. Oh, you want me to have this, okay? My unit, as I stated, I think I'll go to the next slide. or let me just back up here. So currently, just to let you guys know, we do have a new fire chief, Chief Kristen Crawley, as well as our fire marshal, or acting fire marshal will be Chief Melford Beard. And then my direct boss, who's a section commander of the industrial commercial unit, which I work under, is by name of Chief Brian Petty. Again, my name is Captain Brian Assor, and then my right-hand man is Inspector 2 Brent Kneisler, who if when I'm gone or if I'm in other meetings, he steps in my place. Currently, right now, I have 12 inspectors that work directly for me. I have a few civilian sworn or civilian staff that help me manage this entire area of the very high fire severity zone. Go ahead, next slide, please.
Can I just say something about this slide?
Sure.
Kristen Crowley was acknowledged by the LA City Commission on the Status of Women because I think she's the first female chief.
She is
right?
our first female fire chief in the history of Los Angeles. Actually, yeah, in the history of Los Angeles. So back to just for what we hear and why I'm here is my inspection process. Everything in the red that you see here is to make up the city of Los Angeles. Everything in the deep dark red right here makes up the very high fire severity zone. We don't know the rough square footage because of the Santa Monica Conservatory. However, within that, we have what's called, you guys fall in place, what's called the SRA, state responsibility that you are falling to under CAL FIRE. And so currently right now, there's over 154,000 parcels that my office, myself manage. Right. With that, we fall under the state fire code, which is under chapter 49, which we allow us to, people will contest us to make access to your property with you or without you on the property or allowing us on the premise, because we have to identify if there's a safety hazard on your property because directly you live in the fire zone. At the same time, within the 154,000 parcels is that there's over 6,000 parcels that make up government parcels. That's our 900s. That's the Trail Canyon, the parks, that park and recs that we actually cite them for multiple notices for. MRCA, GSD, which is the General Services Division, which make up any other parcels or government parcels that fall in line inside the very high fire severity zone. So my timeline, currently right now in March, my office has been very, very busy. So right now we have sent all our mailers out, and the mailers, if you guys live currently in the zone, which I would probably say 99% of you guys do, have all received one of these. This right here is your information notice that you guys receive every year from my office directly. And what this does is that it tells you specific requirements that you are required to, okay? It tells you that you need to perform a self-inspection, and then come May 1st, we're gonna be coming out to your property, like it or not, and we need to verify that you did that self-inspection and that you performed the brush clearance in adherence to the fire code. For not only for the safety of yourself, but also for the safety of the citizens and your neighbors, everyone else. So currently right now, my office has been inundated because as you can tell, these two lines right here, billings. So unfortunately, the city of Los Angeles, we're such a huge, large ship that it takes us a while to get bills out. So that being said, we are now sending out all our bills for our $31 for it if you failed your first notice. If you failed your second notice, you get a $674 notice on top of the $31 notice. And if you're so inclined, you didn't want to do anything, then I came out to your property with my contractors and we put on basically a $1,398 fee on top of whatever it costs to clear your parcel, on top of the $674, on top of the $31. Because this is how serious we take fire prevention, as well as we take brush clearance. Go ahead. So actually, we'll hold up right there. So in March right now, Trail Canyon and all the parks anywhere in the very high fire severity zone has been cited. I have met Mary, 2 weeks ago, that as well as Task Force 69 at the park itself, because a lot of people in and around the homes surrounding that area are concerned about the brush clearance. Letting you know that everyone who is in the park itself and the refuge area, we're managing, as well as Rec and Parks, as well as my counterpart here with Rec and Parks. I'm sorry, I look at the park rangers. But or Rec and Parks. We unfortunately will let the Rec and Parks know that, hey, we see violations we encourage you to declare it with your own personnel. If you don't, how we work is that we site rec and parks and we'll clear it ourselves with our contractors with the budget that I have. So I will manage everything up to 200 feet from the home. If the home is set beyond 200 feet, it does not pose danger for us here in the city of Los Angeles. The state minimum requirement is 100 feet. Being that we are an urban face development, we require an extra 100 feet because of the type packed population that we have. So we increase it to an extra 100 feet. So that's what you're gonna see us doing. As you notice, if you go to Potrero Canyon, as well as Will Rogers, down Sunset, we are already in the process of siting, and sometimes rec and parks, other city entities will already start performing their cleanup. Next week is when I start putting these contracts out. So if it's not completed, I have 9 contractors that are licensed, bonded, and insured. They're gonna be all bidding on the lowest bid to make sure that this is to be adhered to. And if it does grow back, say, July or August, trust me, I know I get the complaints, is that we'll go back out there knowing that if it warrants, we'll go out there and clear it again.
Okay, 2 questions quickly. Do you know if Potrero Canyon has begun to be cleared, or Michael, you might know, because you figured out for us that it's Waste Unlimited heading out there to clear brush, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard back on anything about that recently, but my understanding is. Chris?
Mariam, today, there was a huge amount of clearing on Front Street in addition to what had already been done.
Okay, so
That was
they're-
just today.
and Jasmine, are you notified when they come out to clear brush?
Not always. Not always. So the person that would be notified is Robert.
Wayne Rostro, thank you. Okay, we'll follow up with them. And then LA USD locations, schools.
So
Are
schools-
they-
That
do
schools
you
that
also send that?
Yes, so it's LAUSD properties, any property, right now, it falls in the very high fire severity zone, I cite. Doesn't matter if it's a government or a private property. We'll cite whoever owns that property, so if it's an LAUSD property, if it's a state property like MRCA land, which is Santa Monica Conservatory, or if it's a local, like LA City, we'll actually cite that specific representative of the city and let him know, you need to get your people and you need to clear, because according to the fire department, we see that we impose a danger because of the brush clearance. If it's not done, we'll do it for you, knowing the city, it's just basically taking money from one pot and putting it in another pot. That's all we're doing.
So by July, it's all clear.
That is the plan.
Okay. Next slide, yes.
Yes, next slide. So come May, June, this is where I become your best friend. This is when we come out and we inspect your properties. So May 1st, this is after you do your site inspection, your self-inspection, I call it. And then we come out and we verify that your property is in compliance. If there's issues, then we'll send a notice, and unfortunately, you have failed basically your initial inspection. However, in May, it takes us, mind you, there's 154,000 parcels. There's only 14 of us. I hire another 14 guys to help us offset this. So it takes us a little time to get there. We might not get your property on May 1st, might get there on June 1st. So we might give you an extra 30 days. So get it cleared. We always say, clear early, clear often. So come July and August. This is when, if your property has been cited, you have 30 days to become compliant. In July and August, we come out and we'll actually re-inspect your property, and everything that we incite on your property, we actually timestamp with everything with the picture. So I get the phone calls saying, I cleared my property way before you came out and inspected, so resend my fine. I said, okay, tell me when you cleared your property. You'll show me your receipt from your garden or your landscaper, say July 17th. My pictures will show, because we take everything with date stamp pictures, July 1st. And then you guys sit there and give me the deer in the headlights look. But it's okay. I'm here to help you and work with you. However, in July and August, like I said, the second inspection fees do come out. That being said, that's a $674 fee. And those prices have just increased to $698. So everything else has gone up. So has the city's budget and everything else. So guess what? They're increasing that too. So that being said, just be aware that's $698 that you guys can do somewhere else. So just clear your own property. It'd be easier and cheaper for you. August, September, October. That's when I have even more close friends. That's when we actually put them out to contract. This you'll see on another slide, but if you see one of these on your property or vacant land, that means I'm coming out in 2 weeks with my contractor. And that means that you're gonna be nailed with either a huge bill of some words, last year I had a $320,000 bill I put on a property because it was not clear, on top of the 1398, on top of the 674. I know it is, I was paying compared to $238,000. However, but that's what I'm preparing for them to go to court with me. But if you see this on your property or your neighbor's property, it would behoove you as well as them to make sure you clear that property or knock on their door and saying, hey, just let you know, the fire department has come to your property and they're gonna come out to your property in 2 weeks to clear your parcel. So clear it. I'm trying to be a good neighbor. Come November, December, this is when all my contractors actually will be going out and finishing up whatever work that we have necessary done, as well as all my invoices. And that's why it takes a while to get your bills. Unfortunately, if you did receive one for this year, come November, December, my accounting, I only have 3 accounting clerks that work for me to get all those invoices out. And that's why you will receive them right around February, March, sometimes. Yes, no. There we go. So appeals. You do have a process. We do have a due process. And just like court, if you get a ticket, you want to go to court and contest it. We do this in my office, believe it or not. I hire 2 to 3 appeal officers that are interim judges from the Los Angeles Superior Court, and they will review your case. When it comes to the BNs, the brush notices, that's your second inspection. That's the inspection that's worth $674, and you can contest it by following the directions that you'll receive in that mail, stating the fact that you have to supply a $50 check to have your case reviewed by the hearing officer. You provide all the facts that you have, pictures, documentation, whatever you have to help your case and to try to prove your innocence, more or less. They will review your case and they'll say yay or nay on it. I have no affiliation with that. The brush clearance has no affiliation. It's a third party, neutral party, so we make sure that you, meaning the citizens, have a clear, basically an impartial view of your case itself. However, the brush clearance, that's where this comes into play. If you received one of these, some of your constituents here have been to my office and they pleaded their case because you actually sit across from me as well as the district inspector, and you bring your entire case and your property, and we will basically more not argue, well, I should say that, I should say discuss the violations to the judge, and I supply all the evidence, what we have, date stamp, pictures, like I said before, and then you provide whatever information that you have to try to prove your innocence of saying, I cleared it, or it's not my property, or this is whatever case may be. I've heard it all. But that is the time of for the BCs. We're gonna start this in May 1st, and it lasts me about 60 days to do that because of 154,000. Last year, I cited 12,222 parcels that were in just the initials. Then we cited again for the second, over 3,000, and then we had appeals. I had over 700 written appeals and then 300 in-person appeals that I had to sit in court for, which was a fun time. So that being said, go ahead, next page, please. To help yourself, to educate yourself, I have a website that you can go on to. This is how you can do it. What you see is what I see. It's called VMS3, Victor, Mary, Sam, 3.lafd.org. You can log on to your parcel. That's where this comes in play. This information notice that you guys receive every year, it's mailed specifically to you. We get your information off the LA County Assessor's Office, your APN, and as well as a PIN number that's specifically to your property. Register onto our system. You can view to see if your property has been passed or failed. If it shows failed, it will identify exactly within 3 feet of my GPS of where we took those pictures and where that hazard is on your property. So you guys have a clear understanding of what has been cited and what needs to be done. If your property has passed, fantastic, it'll show passed, thumbs up, I'll see you next year. However, that's a caveat. We only have enough time, enough manpower to inspect you once a year. However, it is your responsibility to maintain and clear your property throughout the year. Meaning, if I come out in May and I clear your property, and for some reason we get a late rain or some other case, say it was missed because human error plays an effect. A neighbor calls and says that my neighbor has a dead oak tree now, or something, or illegal dumping, which we'll also cite. Something along the lines on your property and say we missed it, or something that grew back. We go back and we can restart the process all over again, because it's your responsibility in living in the zone to make sure you manage and maintain your property. So here's all the fire code requirements. I'm not going to get in depth or read this to you and kill you by death by PowerPoint, but here's all the big stuff. The biggest thing that I see more off is basically trees next to a fire chimney. I need at least a minimum of 10 feet of next to a chimney, 5 feet from your roof line, as well as your grass. Meaning any tall weeds that's going to be above foot length needs to be cut down to 3 inches. You do not have to remove and rake and shake all that stuff off the property. You can leave it there as long as it's not 4 inches thick. Okay, that's the biggest issues I physically see a lot. I see there's some other issues up in, I call them Fire Station 23's area, but I'm not going to get in depth. If you guys live off of Highlands and everything else, you guys pull me off to the side and we can talk more specifically in and around that area. However, but this is the code requirement. It's also stated in this fire prevention pamphlet that you have received. Go ahead, next page. Again, this is just more of the requirements. And next page. This is a description. If you don't know how to read or have a hard time reading, I try to put it in pictures because I'm more of a picture guy. I love pop-ups, but I couldn't get that. It costs a little too much. But this right here, it will display and kind of give you a little explanation of what we're looking for. So again, if you have any further questions regarding brush clearance or what your property is supposed to look like, hit me up tonight, or I will also give you my email at the end of this, as well as your district inspector's email, as well as phone number to call him to make sure that you or your property or properties are clear. Next page. This is our office, the brush clearance. I'm out of Van Nuys, nice beautiful area. This is our phone number, 800-994-4444, as well as the accounting services. Mind you, there's only 2 ladies that right now that work for me who are handling all the issues in accounting services. So leave a message. They will get back to you, I promise. Don't, and that's all I'm gonna say.
What about your email?
It will be coming. So this is what I showed you right here, that red notice. This is the big notice. This is what you do not want to see on your property or your neighbor's property. This right here is what we came up last year, because there's a lot of confusion on if we come to your property. So if you look, it talks about if we show up on your property and if we can identify more or less, like say right here off the Villa Paz. We will look at your property. If we can identify, see the back part of your back of the property itself, we'll inspect it and we'll just keep on moving forward. If we hopped your fence, off the wall, came up from the backside of your canyon, I tell my inspectors, because people are afraid, and quite understandably, it's fine. So we'll put this on your front door, saying that we made entry onto your property. You've either passed or you have failed. But either way, we made entry on your property and we're indicating where you are at on the cycle of our inspection cycle. So either you pass, if you failed, once your initial, you pass, no assessment fee. If you failed, we're coming back in 30 days. It tells you that you failed, you're getting a $33 fee. And then we'll be coming back on a specific day on your notice itself, as well as goes in on your second and furthermore. But at the same time, on the bottom asterisk, it does let you know that we can, because people say, how'd you get on my property? You're not allowed on my property. It does give us the right to go onto your property to inspect it because of the fact that you live in the very high fire severity. AB 38, this is a new thing. This just came back in 2021. If you're a real estate agent or a developer, if you're selling your homes in the very high fire severity zone, or if you're selling your own home in the very high fire severity zone, you shall, that's a word that we use, that means you have to do an AB 38. What this does if you sell your property, it's an information notice telling the seller and the buyer that this property is located in a very high fire severity zone and that you acknowledge all the requirements regarding living in the zone. At the same time, it also state that it being in LA City, we will give you a report saying that the property, we, as the fire department, has cleared it, meaning and you have fulfilled your obligation on everything when it comes to the home defensible space. You are good to go. However, if you have failed, we'll also send that to the, both parties, the buyer and the seller. And then we'll let them, basically more or less, the seller do what they want. Continue with the property on buying, or say, I'm gonna hold off until the property gets finalized by being cleared, as well as the defensible space being checked off by the fire department. Because that's kind of big for the insurance as well as title. However, yes, indeed there. Just let you know that we're having a lot of cases because people say, or if you're buying a home or selling a home, and that is not done, it falls back on the responsible of the seller and the title company. So we're having a lot of lawsuits going in, and I'm the witness for, because of that fact. And these are thousands and thousands of dollars of fees because people don't pay them and it gets put on a lien. And then when the lien gets put on place, then additional fees from the county as well as city gets put on place in that parcel, and it's not a free story. So this is the makeup of all the fire stations here in the breakup into the very high fire severity zone. You here in this office or this building, you guys want to concentrate right here on fire station 19, 23, and 69. His name is Inspector Warren Sutton. You can reach him at Warren, WARREN Sutton, SUTTON at LAcity.org. He is a local boy. He is very attentive to everyone's needs here in the West Side, as well as very, I would say, responsive to everyone. He will meet you if you have questions. He will assist you with any further inspections because he feels that being that you guys are living deep in the zone, he wants to help you guys out. He does not want to put you guys in violation. He wants to make sure you guys are compliant. However, at the same time, if you're not in compliance, he will put you in not in compliance. So,
And he will be at PPCC on April 27th.
and he and I will be here on April 27th at PCCC. Next week.
And where is Station 19?
RC 19 is right there off Sunset and Barrington, more or less. What's that?
Green.
Chief?
Near Bundy and Gretna Green.
Yeah, right there.
Thank you. And
So again, Captain Brian Masor, as I always said, clear early, clear often. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was speaking earlier, Kristen, about how they're going through Potrero Canyon to separate out the invasive plants from the native plants.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted you guys to let me know how that works out in your timeline, because we think of clearances. Whoosh.
Okay, so when it comes to clearance, great question. So there is times where 90% of that stuff is non-invasive or non-native. It's just grass. So we're gonna go in there and yes, we're gonna go with a weed whack, a weed whip, and we're gonna whip it. But my contractors are all arborists. They will go in and if there's specific native species to that area, we will make sure, and as well, especially if it's indicated, they will go around and not just pull it out. We do not remove, meaning pull roots out from the ground, from hillsides. We only cut and spread because we do not want erosion. As you may notice, we've had a lot of rain. And if we start pulling weeds, we're moving trees and their stumps and roots, we're gonna have a lot of erosion problems. So if we do cut a tree or remove any type of shrubs or any other large material, we actually leave the stumps and the roots in place to eliminate the erosion. We'll just lock the growth off because all we're trying to do is remove the lateral growth of the fire spread.
Okay,
Yes,
so that, we're not gonna do questions just
Oh, I'm
yet. We
sorry.
have to get to these guys.
Oh,
No
I'm sorry.
problem. Thank you so much. That was an important question. It actually segues kind of nicely to Kristen. Kristen, will you pick up a mic and see if it works? Thank you. So thank you, Captain Nisor, for all of that. That was very informative and hugely important for all of us as the months of April, May, June, and July roll around.
September, October.
So Kristen, we've been hearing a lot about soil erosion throughout Potrero Canyon. And the people among us and people on the board who've been involved in Potrero for years and years have told us that part of their plan for the soil to be stable is for the vegetation to grow. And once it takes root, it creates stability for that soil. So do you guys monitor Waste Unlimited to make sure that they're clearing in a way that doesn't jeopardize the soil, the integrity of the soil? And B, what about the soil that's already eroded and is running? Is that, before you hand it over to the maintenance contractor, is that something you guys are gonna tackle?
Sure.
Yeah, perfect. Just hold it up. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's a good question. Potrero Canyon is a little bit unique in that usually Rec and Parks will be taking over the maintenance. And for this phase, because we are monitoring it very closely and we want the native plants to establish well, we're actually out there, my staff is out there as well with Waste Unlimited.
Oh, every time?
Maybe not every single time, but we're out there, we know what they're doing. So we are splitting some responsibilities on maintenance with recreation and parks. But Waste Unlimited, we have our biological monitor out there, and he's out there figuring out exactly what's needed, exactly what's not. We're going through, we haven't done brush clearance as far as I know yet because of all the rain.
Okay.
But that's on our radar.
It's on your radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have contracts with them. We're going through, we have a little weed bush showing them what's native and what's not. So we are out there. You may not see a giant crew, but we have crews out there daily.
Okay. And then on the soil slippage, some parts of which are pretty substantive, is that going to be tackled
Yeah,
before that 5% is done?
That's something that we're actually working on today. Our contractor for the they'll be returning to do some repairs on this McKinney Road stabilization off of the access road. They'll be starting that on Monday, and that'll go on for a couple weeks.
So off of the access road would be down on the Frontera gate, I'm guessing. I'm not going to pin you down on this, but there's soil slippage throughout. There's some on Friends. There's the baseball field. There's when you come in on Frontera, I don't know if you've been there, but the entrance, which is down in the parking lot on the right, it's basically a waterfall when it rains. There are various locations, all of which are on your radar?
Most of them, I will say we're constrained by the park boundary as the Bureau of Engineering. So the baseball fields, we would have to refer that to recreation and parks.
Okay.
The largest one that I'm referring to is maybe halfway down the park, at the bottom of the trail. There's currently a lot of plastic sheeting right there, and we'll be back to repair that starting Monday.
That's the one under Friends, right, with plastic sheeting? Yeah. And then just wondering, are you and Jasmine, or basically is BOE and Rec and Parks in touch? Are you able to coordinate well? And
We're in touch right now.
okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm going to be quick and then I'm going to open it up to audience questions. Captain Heredia.
Mariam, do you want to put the screen back on for the people watching?
Well, the owl is supposed to follow the sound.
Okay, but we've got a few things early.
No, it's down. Ah, well, I stopped screen sharing, folks. I'm going to close this. And see if it helps. Okay, great, thank you. Captain Heredia, I was gonna ask you about our basic car, going from fire to PD. Tell us what we have, just please tell us, give us an overview of the resources that we have here in Pacific Palisades. Tell us why it is that we have those resources. And then in the end, sort of, if we were to ask you to please not take the basic car out of here, some of this is about response time, some of this is about communicating. But if we were to ask you to just always keep one car here, because it's tough to get into the Palisades, it's tough to get out of the Palisades. And if there is crime here, it takes, tell me, Ryan, 18 minutes sometimes to respond. Is there a way where you can use everybody else's resources if there's an emergency somewhere else and give us that one car to stay right here in Palisades? That's how it works.
In a perfect world, I would love to say yes, that would happen. But the reality is, we have limited number of people. And so deployment throughout all of West LA Division is during watch 2, which is, early morning, 5:15 until 5:45? 5:15. So 12-hour shift during day watch, we have 6 units that we're required to deploy. During middays, we're required to deploy 3 units. And then mid PMs, like a swing shift, we're required to deploy 2, and then a 12-hour shift overnight. So during those, during the day 12-hour shift, you have 8A1 that is assigned to the Pacific Palisades area. During the graveyard shift overnight, you have 8A1. So you do have one car here that is assigned 24 hours a day at a bare minimum. So the way calls for service works is if there is a call in another part of West LA, the other units handle it. But if they get an arrest, it takes them out of their area, and we need to assign another police unit to handle a call for service somewhere else in the division, then we need to do that. Because, you know, our job is to respond to calls in a timely manner. And I say people don't care if we show up in a car, on a motorcycle, on a bicycle, or even on a horse. When they call the police, they want us to be responsive. They want us to show up quickly. And that's what we try to do. We try to do that responsibly. And my direction to the watch commander has been to use 8A1, that the car assigned to the Pacific Palisades, as a last resort. Our desire is to have a car here because we do know that West LA is large geographically, as I've spoken about earlier. We want to have somebody here all the time. And part of the other resources that we've assigned here is the beach detail. So we had, when Captain Tom, when I first moved in January of last year, we had 2 officers that were assigned to the beach detail. They work a 4-10 shift. They were here 4 days a week. I'm no mathematician, but that left us 3 days that were unaccounted for. So, and my job as a patrol commanding officer at the time was to oversee all of patrol, black and whites, and all of the officers that were assigned to patrol. And so in an effort to make sure that we had better service in the Pacific Palisades area, I took 2 of my officers that I'm supposed to be selfish with for deployment for all of West LA, and assigned those extra officers to Captain Tom at the time to make sure that we have 4 officers assigned to the beach detail so that we can have closer to 7 days a week coverage. And so that is our plan. Every 4 weeks, we come up with a deployment and we map out 7 day a week coverage. There are occasions when we have protests and other things going on throughout the city where we need to pull resources. And I do have a minimum number of units that I have to fill throughout all of the division. But I do my best to make sure that we advocate for and have a police presence here, because we do know that it can take quite a while to get here sometimes. But I just have some basic stats that I'll share real quickly. And these were just published recently. And so with regard to Code 3 response, our city, I guess our city goal is a 7-minute response time, Code 3, lights and siren. So in West LA, we're currently at 7.2 minutes. So we're pretty close, not great, and I want us to be much faster. But the bureau average, all of West Bureau, the bureau average is 6.4 minutes. The city average is 6.4 minutes. And so that means we're about 45 to 48 seconds slower getting to Code 3 calls for service. Our other emergency calls, so our Code 2 calls that are priorities but without lights and siren, our average is 22.6 minutes. The bureau average is 23.1 minutes, and the city average is 23.6. West LA is the best currently when it comes to responding to calls for service that are emergency without lights and siren. Non-coded calls, all of the other calls, the city average is 53.6 minutes for a non-coded call. The bureau average is 54.4 minutes, and the West LA average is 48.5. So we are responding to calls faster than other divisions, even though we have fewer officers. And the days of showing up to work and jumping in a black and white police car and driving around to see what the day brings, those days are gone. Everybody gets an assigned mission at Start a Watch, and they are told what specifically needs to be accomplished that day during periods of time when they are not responding to calls for service. So time between calls, we are handling extra patrol requests, such as a recent thing that we had at the post office, right? We've worked that into our daily extra patrols. So we are responsive to the community's needs, and the things that are important to you are important to us. And we're trying to be everywhere we can at the same time, knowing that we can't be.
And when, so two questions, when the car is called out, does it then come back? I mean, is that how it is? Here's an emergency, basic car, you've got to go to Venice, but when you're done, back to the Palisades?
Yes, but when 8A1, you know, those officers make arrests also,
Right.
and an arrest can take you out of service for 6 hours, right? 5 hours on average. So you're out of commission for quite a while. So it's the watch commander's job to make sure that we backfill resources and that we are assigning people over to 8A1's area because we want to be closer for that next emergency. And there are a number of other things that I believe the community is largely unaware of that we do. And such as on morning watch, our graveyard shift, we had a number of aggravated assaults and robberies that would occur after hours along PCH. And so early last year, we started mandating our morning watch car, 8A1, to conduct patrol down PCH and move cars that are parked there illegally. Because people, you know, sit there, they drink, they smoke, they get crazy, and they decide to fight, and, you know, we have crime that is preventable. So every single night, the direction from the watch commander to the officers that are assigned 8A1 is to drive Pacific Coast Highway, and if there are cars that are parked there that do not belong after hours according to the signs, they are to warn them, move them along, and or cite them if that's appropriate. Since we've been doing that, we have had very little violent crime along PCH. So that's a proactive approach that we're doing to mitigate crime before it happens. And so we're very conscious of, there's three things that need to take place or three parts of any crime if you look at the science. We need a suspect, we need a victim, and we need a location. So as law enforcement, if we can eliminate one of those three things from the equation, then we don't have a crime, right? So we're trying to eliminate potential victims and suspects from that particular location. And so the way that works is we look at all of our crime analysis and we look at what is driving our problems. Do we have people that are drunk and intoxicated and they are becoming victims of crime because they're drunk and people think that it would be easy to rob them? In which case we would implement a drinking in public task force, right? And we would go out there and we would take care of the people who are incapable of taking care of themselves and remove those potential victims from the equation. So there are less people out there to rob, right? We can solve problems that way. We actually look at what our victims are. We work with our city attorney, neighborhood prosecutors on environmental fixes. So if we have dark locations where criminal activity is afoot, right? Dark places invite trouble. Teenage kids, whoever it may be, enjoy the not being seen. So we work with our neighborhood prosecutor, we work with our community partners, and we make sure that we put lighting up. And lo and behold, guess what? We add lights, crime goes away. It might go somewhere else, but we've solved a problem there. And that's an environmental fix using that three-part component of the location, right? Fixing the location. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes. And I think my partner Jose has something to add to that.
I just wanted to add, in regards to response time, when A1 does get an arrest and that unit's no longer available, us being the beach detail, we're also pretty much a sister car to A1. So if they're not there, a call comes out in the general area, we'll actually respond to it to stop the clock, to assist patrol. So it takes us away from what we're doing at the time, but it also helps stop the clock and get there. Once the other patrol unit gets there, we'll pass the radio call over to the other unit, and then we'll go back to what we're doing, handling the beach. So I just wanted to chime in, just let you guys know for response time, we're there to assist.
No, that's perfect. And I know, throughout the course of your day, you're not only at the beach, you're in A1's area and you're walking the park and you're being physically present in the areas to augment that one car that we have, as a minimum allowance. We try to add to that, bolster resources wherever we can.
Okay, so I've got a question for Brian, but Sergeant Scott Alpert, you are community relations, and Captain Heredia is telling us all this stuff, all of these things that you're doing, these strategies that you're implementing behind the scenes that we don't hear about. We usually just grill Brian about response times. Do you have a way, or are you implementing a way to communicate with the community some of those other things that you're doing that are kind of behind the scenes that we don't know about, but they are mitigating crime and they are reducing the statistics?
Right, so some of what's good is, Brian communicates to me his crime updates and so forth. So he'll talk about, for example, like what Jose and Beach Detail has done. He'll talk about, like our new methods and so forth. And then of course, he will email all the HOAs individually or as a group, and then talk about those different methods that we're using. And then of course, if we get specific questions like regarding like what we're doing about an issue, sometimes I won't, we won't get that out to the whole entire community. We'll just send that email to them because then it's really more of an independent thing. It's more of an isolated incident. And what we found sometimes, if it's an isolated incident and we send it out to the whole community, then they panic sometimes and think that there's robberies going on all over the Palisades when it's maybe just a one-time thing. And maybe it was an individual, that they knew. And so we dealt with that issue. So then we'll tell them how, like different methods they can deal with. So, or do next time so that doesn't happen. But yes, so generally our communication, I rely on Brian to kind of get that out to the community. And if someone's reaching out to me, because maybe they hear something from Brian, then to me, it's probably like a divisional thing. So I will reach out to all the SLOs and have them get out to all their community. And then of course our CPAB meetings, our community advisory board meetings. If you're not on those, you should really try to get on this because that's when we'll talk about those issues that are affecting the whole entire division. And if there's issues that are brought up, let's say by like Judy Hewitt, for example, she's really good and she really gets on there and kind of, in a very positive way, grills us and asks us about certain ideas. Are we doing this? Are we doing that? And so if it's a good idea that maybe we haven't implemented, then now maybe we'll actually implement it. Something that we're already doing, and it gives us a chance to kind of talk about how we are doing that, what our process is, for example, party houses, right? Like that's always been a big problem in West LA. So for the CPAB meetings, we talk about exactly our procedures and how we implemented a whole policy change as far as at West LA and how we deal with that and the whole department as a whole. So yeah, so we're really good at trying to communicate that out. But there are some things that sometimes we miss. So then we rely on you guys to actually reach out to us and tell us, hey, we're having a problem like this. How do you deal with it? And then we'll get that out to the community, or Brian will in his crime updates, or Matt will in his crime updates and so forth.
Okay, so there are two conversations that you're part of, at least for Pacific Palisades. One is this idea of communicating. So I think eventually, we'll probably come up with a group of people to work with you to see if there's a way for the community to help you communicate sometimes when you need to, whether it's on demand and it's quick and it's an emergency, get this information out, or if it's more nuanced. So everyone, Brentwood Community Council is the same, but PPCC has reps that represent people who live in different areas, and then we have reps that represent the various organizations in the Palisades. Between all of them, that's quite a bit of email list. So if you were to, let's say, reach out to me or the board secretary who controls our communication or our social media, and you say there's something I want you to tell the community about, that's something we can potentially partner with you on or interface with you on. So I know you're part of that conversation. I think that'll develop. And then the other conversation that you're all part of, and I don't know what's happening, I don't expect to talk about it or finalize it today, but we have long talked about finding a way to enable LAPD to have a stop-in station in the Palisades. So Captain Heredia, what you were saying, if there's a booking to be done, we'll usually lose our car for hours, and maybe there's a way to keep it here. So those are two conversations that are happening in the Palisades, and I would love to see them push ahead because it seems like they'd both be ways where the community can help you stay here, whether it's by word or physically, but just to be here. Okay, so Brian, now I'm going to go to Sharon, but that one time where you got grilled for two things. Yeah. So that one time you got grilled for response time, it was like 18.5 minutes. Was that a sirens and lights, as you call it, as you all call it? Was that a silent sirens and lights response time? It was two kids who were in a house that was being.
Yeah, so that particular incident, the officers that were assigned. So I guess how do I explain this? So the first car that was assigned the call, they, when they got, we call it retoned, they were somewhere in West LA Division, they were responding. There was another unit that, I'm sorry, then they were handling a call, so they couldn't accept the call. They said they were unable to take it. So it got assigned to another unit that was further away, that was available to handle the call. So the response time from where they were leaving, somewhere in the division, to when they arrived was roughly 18 minutes.
But that was an emergency. That was the one that's the fastest, the one Captain Heredia, in your stats, you called it sirens and lights. Was that like get there as fast as you can?
Yeah,
It
so,
was?
yeah, that one was license time,
So that's what it's gonna be like if our basic car isn't here.
potentially. Potentially, it's not all the time, but yeah, that could, I mean, it's, West LA is a huge division, because we go all the way to La Cienega, so if our car, if the Palisades car is tied up on a call, and the next available unit is down by La Cienega and Venice, then that's the only available unit, that's the only one that's gonna.
So that was a circumstance where our Palisades car was called away. Beach detail probably wasn't around, and so you were relying on somebody who was far away. How often does that happen?
It depends on the day, honestly. It's, some days it's more often when there's a heavier call load. Some days it's, quicker where our Palisades car is in the area and they get there within a couple minutes because they're already here. So I mean, every day is a little different. It all depends on how crazy the city's going.
Okay. So Captain Heredia, yet again, that would be a reason why we would beg you to keep our car here.
And I would love to tell you I can do that.
I know.
And the reality
We'll work
is, I don't have enough people to fulfill that promise, even though I would love to do that.
Okay. And then the second thing you got grilled for was communication. There was something that happened, you weren't here. Is there a better mechanism now?
Yeah, so we've had several meetings, sorry. There it goes. We've had several meetings already within our command and then with some community members as well, to work on better communication, where if I'm on days off or not near my phone, there's other people that we could reach out to try to disseminate the information. So that's something that we've kind of worked it out and talked about, especially with our patrol assets. We definitely worked on different ways to communicate other issues going on within the patrol as well.
Okay, great. So Sharon, Palisadian to Palisadian. Is it on?
There you go.
All right, so in light of the fact that everybody is now aware that PPTFH is going to reorganize in some way, I want to take restructure in some way. I want to take you back to that day. So I want to take you back 4 or 5 years when we had launched Pacific Palisades Task Force on Homelessness. We had not yet incorporated it, but it was already the Pacific Palisades Task Force on Homelessness. And we had just raised the money to hire the people concerned, OPCC at the time. So I was still the chair. We had just gotten through the process of telling the community and interfacing with the community and then raising money, and we had hired that group. You were already on the ground working with homeless people. Long before we came along and created PPTFH, you had already, I remember there was a guy in the tunnel, you had already paid him to clean up the tunnel. You had basically already transitioned that man out of homelessness. So you came along and you said, okay, so PPTFH, you're gonna raise money and you're gonna hire the people concerned, which at the time was OPCC, but you still need a volunteer aspect on the ground, and that's what you developed. So when Rusty Redican was first given to the Palisades through Captain Nieto, you were able to sit down with Rusty and Glenda and Maureen and give them a list of 10 people, tell them what their names were, what their circumstances were, where they were, and give them a start. So in my head, the Task Force on Homelessness had OPCC, which is now the people concerned that we paid to do something. And then it had you and all these Palisadians who seem to be doing something else that has grown, as far as I understand, to be a really, really important integral part of the PPTFH. Now you're reorganizing and people are worried. People are worried about not having PPTFH. So there's the people concern component that gets funded. And I understand the people concern is saying we'll take on the funding stream. And then there's the community volunteers that work with you and LAPD. are they still intact? And will they still be able to continue?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, yes to everything. We are restructured. People concerned will be our fiduciary. They will continue their work, their good work. We will oversee them. We'll have an oversight committee that's already in place and has been in place to collect the data. We have monthly meetings, which you used to be a part of, and you know the process. That will continue. We will have the volunteer response team. I have 2 amazing individuals on my team that want to step up into my position. It'll probably take 3 people, because one will oversee the LAPD work, that are ready to go and have committed into 2024 after I leave at the end of 2023. So at this point, we just need more compassionate, able people to volunteer to engage our, incoming new homeless individuals to offer services and also to clean up. I've got some great ideas going forward, working with Brian, doing maybe some community cleanups in our very high fire restricted posted areas where we can bring trash bags, we can recruit volunteers that way. We'll do different areas, like maybe one month we'll do the Via Olas bluffs. Maybe the next month we'll go behind the wall and go to Del Mar bluffs. Maybe the next time we'll go up to Mescal Canyon Road, and then Palisades, Highlands area, Los Leones. We have plenty of areas that need our help. And so this kind of thing builds community with LAPD, brings new volunteers into the process. There's a lot of hope, there's a lot of great ideas. And then LAPD also has, how many are you doing a year? 4? Minimum of 4 hillside, all agency task force splits, which our team also helps with, where we meet early in the morning and we go out into all the fire restricted zone hotspots with teams, and we look for homeless encampments and we do cleanup. In fact, Michael was with us on the last one. So, Officer Bermudez knows all the spots. So, I mean, everybody's ready to go. We just need the community to continue supporting us, donate and earmark the funds to the people concerned, to the Palisades outreach, and it will keep going as long as we're supporting it. And right now, we're looking into, 2024 is already taken care of. So it'll keep going as long as the community supports it.
So the funding stream will continue to go to the people concerned, and they'll still have the three outreach workers, caseworkers in town.
A clinical case manager, 2 outreach workers, yes, and then you have a housing navigator. The problem is that, we're not getting the vouchers like we used to. This is not the fault of the people concerned. It comes from, the whole story. So we'll continue.
So for the community, conceptually for the community can sort of envision this as the PPTFH sort of maybe truncating into one part that sort of breaks away to the people concerned, and that funding stream continues, those caseworkers continue, and there's still a volunteer opportunity here in the Palisades that we as a community can maintain.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to have the volunteer capacity or it will go away. We need the volunteers in place. And hopefully some organization, that's in good standing, could float into our group can float into them, and it can carry on, we can talk later, but this is just the beginning. We're just, we got till the end of the year. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you, Sharon. I am done. Those are all of my questions. I'm going to open it up to a community. Thank you everyone for being here, and I'm going to open it up to questions. And I'm going to borrow my. Okay, hands again. Sue Cole. Hello. Jeff.
Hi.
Susan, Jeff, and I'm
Officer Aspen and all the rest of you. I just heard from a neighbor while I was sitting here that on Friday night there was a break-in in Beirut and Via Bluffs. And as opposed to the other sort of negative experience, that we had over on Hartsel, they said that you guys were able to arrive within 5 minutes of the 911 call. So I guess it had happened previously, but I'm sure they were very grateful for you. And also they were just asking me if you had any other details.
Sorry, Lee. Yeah, so I did see the report. Right now, the detectives are just doing the active investigation. There's nothing that, they're looking at possible surveillance video. Most of you all get my crime update, my little crime tips. I talk about the security cameras. It is beneficial to have a camera angled out towards the street because that way the investigators, detectives can do a little bit more follow-up. Hopefully they can get a direction of where the people are suspects are either leaving to or coming from, and then they kind of trace the dots, and then hopefully you can get a car involved. So yeah, right now they're just doing an active investigation on the burglary.
I guess they were casing on scooters, is what they said.
I didn't see that in the report, so I can't verify that.
Chuck Brett.
I'll do the mic after this. So I represent lots of organizations that do tons of volunteer work, including my own family, and beach cleanups and all kinds of things. All the things that you just mentioned, I've never heard of any of them. They're all things that my family and other organizations would love to do.
Can you talk louder?
I'm sorry. I was just wondering why I haven't heard of any of these things. We do beach cleanups and other things with scouts and my family and all kinds of other people. So, I mean, I read the post, social media. Where am I not seeing this?
Okay.
I am going to put Jeff in touch with Sharon Kilbride.
Well, Jeff,
You walk out of here.
Jeff,
Jeff is actually.
we're going to start these new community, functions. But PPCC in the beginning, we did have a lot of trash and encampments throughout the whole Palisades that we cleaned up. And we had many volunteer cleanups that were in the post. But since then, we did all the work. It took us 3 years. So now our volunteers basically, when they're out doing their rounds, engaging homeless, they find an abandoned camp. We just clean it up on our own. So it's just our own volunteer base at this point. But going forward, these are new ideas, which hopefully will carry on where we could go out with hike with the cop into these fire restricted zones, bring trash bags. And if we find stuff, clean it up. But we're doing a really good job, at present time. So we don't have a lot of refuse or trash laying around because we're taking care of it.
But Jeff, I am going to put you in touch with Sharon, because I do think you're the kind of person that it would be good to have you guys. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, I appreciate what you.
Can you speak closer to the mic?
Is that better?
Yes.
I appreciate what you told us about the victim, the suspect, and the place. And Officer Bermudez was good enough to come to my place, which is on Potrero Canyon and separated by just a little tiny fence. And so we looked over that together and saw the vulnerability. And one thing we discussed is this, which is a native plant. It's already on the list of native plants. And we talked about, is it possible to be less vulnerable with this kind of planting next to the fence? It's a prickly pear. And so that's my question for Kristen, I guess.
Can you talk about plants?
So just to kind of touch on the fence, the design intent of the fence is more or less to mark the perimeter of the park. So it's just to mark the property line. It wasn't intended for security. And this isn't to say that that residents can't go and get in touch with building and safety and build their own wall. But that particular 4-foot fence is only intended to mark the property line. And that was per the direction and after discussion with the community and recreation and parks. As far as planting, at this time, we don't have budget to have our contractor come out and plant different plants, specifically for neighbor concerns. I don't think there are any restrictions to if you wanted to plant it yourself on your property. But at this time, there's over 100 residents that are bordering the canyon. And we try to accommodate as much as possible, but we can't go out and individually plant plants along every property.
Okay, sorry. We'll come back around, I
Yeah,
promise.
and follow up real quick. So do the police officers say just posting no trespassing, or what strengthening is advised?
Strengthening as to
Of
what,
the vulnerability of you on Potrero Canyon with just a low fence leading right to your backyard.
so like you met with Officer Bermudez, the big push is for aesthetics is environmental barriers. Cactus, prickly pear plants, rose bushes, anything with thorns. If you want to line your property line with that type, that is a huge deterrent. No one's gonna want to climb through all that. But as far as putting signs, you can put no trespassing signs if you want. It's just another deterrent if someone is gonna follow that, you know. But honestly, the environmental barriers, I think, are your best option.
Nina.
This is for Sharon Kilbride and also Mayor Craig. Just really appreciate being able to meet here and wonder if there's, as this transition is going on for the PPTFH, if there could be some in-person meetings called, because that, I was in on the beginning of the task force, and to see people face to face, just, it was an event and people talked about it more, and the message got through that you maybe aren't hearing about. So that was just a question and suggestion.
Well, I want to, Sharon, I think Nina asked if there could be more in-person meetings, so I'll let you answer that, but I do want to tell everybody that Nina famously put on a play at the Palisades Playhouse and Palisades Theater that benefited PPTFH, and it was a performance. But it was a performance that was performed by only 2 people, one of whom had actually written the play, and it was about homelessness. It was about someone's experience having either experienced homelessness or knew someone who did. It was a beautiful moving play, and all of the proceeds were donated to PPTFH that year, and it was beautiful. So wanted to give you that kudos, Nina. Oh, thank you. All right, so in-person meetings.
So Nina, yeah, I think once we kind of get things figured out, we'll be more vocal, but this is just, the first 2 weeks of us coming out publicly with a statement. So there's a lot of work to be done, but once we start formulating things, we'll be more vocal. We'll do that community meeting.
Thank you.
Officer Espen has seen my presentation. My name is Bart Young. I live in Castle Lamar, which is Sunset in PCH. We have about 250 homes. So response time is a big issue. And so to do something about it, we've created a network for our neighborhood, those 250 homes. We have surrounded the community with an electronic fence with license plate cameras, facial recognition cameras. It's a fairly sophisticated system. And then all the neighbors are connected through an app called Whistle, which we've only done Whistle in that one community, but it enables you to send an alert that would be a crime, a prowler, a fire, solicitor alert, or a pet alert within 30 seconds. Okay, you can send it code blue or code red. Code blue is just email and text to all the neighbors. Code red, it sends a digital phone call that tells who you are. It GPSes where you are, and it tells the nature of the crime. And then there's a website that you can build on, and it's worked real well to identify people that are crawling through our neighborhood. These are criminals, and I've had good luck sending them to Brian, but we haven't released it anywhere else. But this year, my wife Cindy Young, who some of you know, we're gonna open it up to a couple other neighborhoods in Pacific Palisades on a pilot basis. This is not venture funded; it is family funded, and it's been a lot of work. But the system we feel is working well enough that we'll share it. Anybody who's interested, come and talk to me afterwards. Thank you very much.
So I want to let you know that Captain Heredia told me about Whistle. It's WISSLE.
Thank you.
Not
Yes.
your traditional spelling.
Right.
And we will look into it.
All right.
will say something about it at PPCC.
Thank you.
Diane,
Thank you.
Sleek, and then, Cindy.
I just
So it
simply
makes
wanted
sense for
to
Cindy.
say
So
to
Cindy,
Brian,
Diane.
LAFD, very comprehensive PowerPoint. Is there any chance we can get a copy of that?
I gave it to her.
So we can get that distributed?
Yes.
I know my community would love that.
Yes, I will send it to you, but I'll also post it.
Okay.
And Diana.
Hi, thank you so much, all of you up there for working and volunteering.
Can you speak closer to the
I know
mic?
it's a really tough job. I just really want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I guess this really goes to CB11. I'm just here as a private citizen. And I have to tell you, I have been in 3 stores that have been robbed since 2021 and at broad daylight. I wasn't hurt in any of them, but the people came in and took everything and then said a bunch of words and ran out. My family was a victim of a very violent crime. And I work in a hospital, which I take call, and I drive up and down Pacific Coast Highway at all hours of the morning and at night. I can tell you about all the homeless on PCH. And to boot, I live in the Highlands, in which I'm like the safety captain for ACS, and so I deal with all the homeless up there. But I guess the main thing I want to ask CB11 is that I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. You know, I'm 3rd generation, and this is the first time in my life I don't feel safe. And those 3 store robberies, you know, it was like 2:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday and a Thursday. One was here at CVS, and I love Pacific Palisades, but it's not that big. CD11, this is a much bigger area. I work at Kaiser, and when I drive there, you know, I've seen really scary stuff on Pacific Coast Highway, homeless people running around, all the Winnebagos that sleep on Coast Highway and Sunset. I know those guys. I know all those vans. I see them every single day. So I guess I say to all of you, I mean, I want to say thank you for your service, but I'm starting to feel like I live on the Titanic. And like, I campaigned for Tracy Park. I really believe in Tracy Park, and I really want to turn this around. But I don't know, I need to hear some of Tracy Park representative tell us, like, is Sawtell and Bundy, is that all being cleaned up? Okay, anyways, I'm just here as myself telling you the truth, and there's no other way of getting a hold of you, so that's what I'm telling you.
So I do want to let you guys know that Tracy Park's office has reached out to us for a community safety fair in June. We're looking to pin down a date.
So thank you for sharing that. And of course, I want to start off by saying that I'm very sorry that you're going through that. And I really do hear you, and not just myself, but all my colleagues in the office and Councilwoman Tracy Park herself. We hear you, we hear constituents all throughout north and south down the districts that people don't feel safe, and if they felt unsafe before, they feel even more unsafe now. And this is something that really motivates us to work hard and address the issues. And so how are we working? What are we doing? And the first thing that I've had to do in my capacity as field deputy here is build relationships with the people that I can work with to make that difference. That's something that I've been doing with LAPD, among others, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done so far. If I remember correctly, you mentioned Bundy area, and yeah, that's an area that I've become very familiar with, among others. And right now, what I can share in the introductory statements that I made about 45 minutes ago, I mentioned the Care Plus programs that we're organizing. And to be specific, what Care Plus is when we bring out the cleaning crews along with LAPD assistance, along with homeless outreach from the county, specifically LAHSA, to robustly address and encamp, not just clean it up, but also get the people who are homeless to receive services. It's not just a homeless issue, it's a public safety issue. When these camps grow, lawlessness comes along with it in all sorts of ways. And right now, we are facing a crunch where we've had to make choices as to addressing particular encampments over others. And this is something that we face in several ways. Recently, we've had a labor shortage with sanitation involving a certain type of labor dispute that didn't go to the point of strike. But when we deal with a labor dispute or deal with high demand in certain areas, we face tough crunches. And with that being said, I'm constantly in communication with my partners, and we're doing what we can, as much as we can, to address this matter. This is incredibly personal to me. It's incredibly personal to Councilwoman Tracy Park, and we are very confident that we're going to see change.
Thank you. I will put you in touch with Diane, and I know you, Captain Heredia wants to have a response to this.
Thank you. I'm like super eager to talk about this. You sense that. So you're not alone how you're feeling unsafe. There are many, many people who are feeling like that. And I just want to assure you that my conversations with Tracy Park and her team have been very encouraging to me. She's all about public safety, and I don't think she's, her words are not what are going to define her. It's her actions, and she is acting on the things that she has promised. She's hired a stellar team. Gabby Medina is her right hand. Juan Fragoso is her homeless outreach coordinator. And I had the opportunity to work with him when I was a lieutenant at Rampart, dealing with Echo Park. And he worked for Mitchell Farrell's office at the time. And he is one of the best. So she has done some really good hires. And I'm excited about working with her team. We're in communication all the time. But what I want to go back to is what you were talking about with these, as you call them, robberies. They sound to me like they're flash mob, theft, shoplifting kind of things, right? And so the reality is Prop 47 that was billed as the Safe School and Neighborhoods Initiative in 2014 was voted into law. Sounded Safe School and Neighborhood Initiative. Fantastic. Everybody wants that, right? But when you read the text of that law, it decriminalized a lot of crime. Felonies, misdemeanors, nothing. And so when I talk about this, the reality is, the example I like to use is that I can steal something from you every single day for the rest of my life. As long as it's under $950, it will never, ever be a felony. Prior to Prop 47, there was something called 666 of the Penal Code, and that was petty theft with a prior. If you committed a theft-related crime and you spent 1 day in jail, the very next time it would be a felony. Judges knew this, and they would sentence people to jail after they've been repeatedly identified as a thief, criminally identified as a thief, give them 1 day in jail. So the next time it would be a felony. So on the heels of Prop 47 was Prop 57 that did more of the same. And we also have Assembly Bill 109. And so that is related to our prison system and our state prisons that are overcrowded. And so state prisoners were moved out of state prisons and they were moved into county jails. Our county jails are full with state prisoners, right? So where do we put the lower level criminals who need to be incarcerated, right? These are problems, and I share this with you because this is not something that Tracy Park can fix all by herself. This isn't something that law enforcement can fix all by itself. This is a voter decision. These are propositions that we have as California voting members have voted into law. And so I would encourage everybody to be mindful as to what they have voted for. And if they don't like it, then to get a committee going, be a part of some of these committees and voice whichever side of the spectrum you're on, get involved and be part of the change that you're looking for. And I know these words don't help very much, but do know that we are doing the best that we can with the laws that are currently on the books. And again, you're not alone in feeling unsafe. There are many people who feel that way. And my job is to make sure that the Pacific Palisades community specifically, you know, as you mentioned before, I think it was USA News, right, that printed that article about the extremely low crime rate here in the Pacific Palisades area. My philosophy has always been one crime is too many. And we need to make sure that that low crime rate stays low and continue to push it down to where we have no crime. That's my goal. And that's what we're going to continue to work towards. And it can't be done alone. It's not a law enforcement fix. It needs to be done in partnership with people like Sharon, other volunteers who are stepping up to be a part of the solution. And we, again, we're not going to do it alone. We need your help.
Thank you. That was great. John Allen, we need the last question. Sharon.
Actually, I do need to, just one more thing, just building off of for just a practical thing, by the way, when it comes to crime victims and witnesses of crime, the city attorney has a program to help these people directly, whether it's relocation costs, whether it's getting a restraining order, things of that nature. So when it comes to dealing with being in that situation, reaching out to the CD11 office and then us getting in contact with the city attorney, that's one of the things that we do as well.
I just wanted to add in, Tracy Park will be our guest speaker for the next PPTFH community meeting on homelessness, of course, on April 24th at 7 o'clock. So if you go to Palisades Homeless, if you Google that, you can sign up for the webinar then. So if you have any homeless related questions for Tracy Park, go ahead and jot them down, send them in. So we will be addressing that at that time.
All right, John Allen. Last question.
Hope you got very cool. I'm John Alley, and I own a home in the Riviera, but I also own a home on Potrero, where I spend most of the time, and in the canyon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, but it's not working.
Is it on?
Push the button.
Thanks. So I spend most of the time in the canyon, walking and hiking. A lot of us hope that we can pursue and learn more about the licensed reader program that's coming up and being discussed. Regarding Potrero, Kristen, a couple questions, and I can send you an email now that I know who you are. Before the contractor leaves and departs, I'm in real estate, so there's latent defects that need to be addressed.
Sorry, we can't hear over here.
Oh, there are latent defects in the canyon that need to be addressed by the original contractor. For instance, you touched on it, the left entry gate at Frontera, because it abuts to a tennis court, it's real low. And adolescents and teens are coming in at night, and there's firecrackers going off when the gates are locked, but they're just climbing in. You can see the gates bent. Why hasn't the dirt that came from the Crusoe project that no vegetation can grow from been removed? That's a question. It was dumped there 2 years ago. And there are slides and water running from Frontera. So when you enter the park, your feet are in a puddle, whether it's raining or not. And then the troughs on both ends of the canyon are full of dirt, and they're not pitched. So they're full of water, and the water's not draining. So that's going to have it's going to affect slides. And then also the middle of the canyon where the water runoff is supposed to meet the water drains and go to the ocean. It's not pitched. In fact, they don't even go into the drain. So that needs to be addressed. Plus, just walking it every day, I counted 7 broken sprinklers. So when the water starts going again, those have to be fixed. And now that the brush and the weeds are growing, it's going to be hard to find those. So I'd be happy to walk with the ranger, if there is a ranger, that handle all 3 parks, to point out where those are. Thanks.
So Kristen, I'm going to give you a chance to just address them. So these are, thank you, John, these are issues that we brought up before. So one is the soil slippage just beyond the Frontera gate. I think you said at the beginning that you were addressing that. John might not have been here yet, so tell us about that. Generally, the soil slippage, just tell us again that it's being addressed. The gates is something you have in your inbox. It's the various types of gates. Some are 6 and some are 4. I think there's some rhyme or reason to that. Please tell us if there isn't. Tell us if they can be adjusted before you hand this over to RAP. And then there's the standing water issue. Jasmine's gone, but you also know this. There are spots in the canyon where we think there's standing water. I think what was worked out with RAP was that somebody from vector control would come out and monitor it until, you know, the community was assured that it was all good. So if you could just lightly address all those, and then I'll put you in touch with John if you want to address them more deeply, you know, in an email to him.
Sure. And if I miss any, please feel free to interrupt me now. I think the first one is regarding the slippage, especially along the Frontier Street gate. That's something that we've been in contact with RAP. We know it's an issue, but unfortunately, because all of that water is coming from the baseball fields, we're not allowed to touch that. We have to stay at the Bureau of Engineering. We have to stay within our construction area, and that fence, the water is coming from beyond that fence. So we brought it up to them. We're in contact with them, but that's something that Recreation and Parks will ultimately have to handle there before we can have any big things there.
So when he's talking about the soil slippage on the side of Ventura, which is the reason we want the puddles, because when it rains, nothing holds back the water and it literally looks a little bit like a waterfall. That you're saying emerges from the baseball field, and so the PPBA has to deal with it.
I'm not sure about who that
The acronym.
is. Yeah, but the Recreation and Parks ultimately will have to deal with that.
Okay. All right.
And then the rest of
Fence
the
heights.
Okay, the fence heights behind private properties is a 4-foot fence, and that was determined back in the design phase. We had residents who wanted no fence at all. We had residents who wanted a 6-foot block wall. So ultimately, between discussions with the community, with the previous CD11 office, and with the Recreation and Parks, they came to a decision that it would be 4 feet as compromise.
Kristen, this is at the very entrance.
Okay.
It's, you have a picture of it, but it was a while ago. I'll send it to you again. So it's the gate that's, I'll send it to you. It's hard to describe, but there's a gate. Is Chris here? Oh, Cindy. Yeah, there's a gate. On one side it's higher, on the other side it's lower. People are going under and they're going over.
Okay, yeah, take a look at that. But in general, the mindset was 6 feet along the areas of the perimeter that are not bordering private property and 4 feet behind private property.
Okay, Cindy, I'm gonna give you the floor in a second, but then the standing water.
And
The drainage of the water, and then the fact that the floor doesn't seem to have a pitch enough for this to flow, so vector.
So just as some background, I guess, for the design of the basins, it's designed to be a natural restoration habitat for a riparian zone. And a riparian zone, to the best of my understanding, is a little bit like a marsh swamp kind of area. So it's naturally expected to be water. We built in kind of like a bathtub in order to keep water there so the plants will grow. So we'll get that natural restoration back. So when it looks like water isn't draining, it might just be what it's designed to do. And I know that there are areas of concern, and I think Recreation and Parks have walked them, and they walked us through it as well. And we're taking a look at those further. But you know, it might not be all of the canyon that, or may it not appear to drain when it's really doing what it's designed to do.
So I'm gonna say the same thing to you as we discussed with LAPD a couple of months ago. Please communicate. So, you know, when residents look at standing water, they think it's an issue. If you know that it's either draining or it's not draining, but it's okay, or you've got vector control coming out, just communicate with us so that we can communicate that with the community. We have set up a Pacific Palisades Potrero Canyon Oversight Committee, our PPCC. We now have a tab on our website. We update information all the time. So, you know, some of these concerns are recurring. If we can address them by giving people information, it's really helpful. So just please stay in touch. And yes, it would be great to know that Vector came out again. I know they came out about a month and a half ago. They said they would continue to come, but it would be great to just have them come out again and, you know, assure everyone that that standing water is safe. Okay, and John, I'll put you in touch with Kristen. Does that work? Cindy, any comment or commentary?
I was just gonna echo the.
I'm gonna give you a mic.
I have the fence at the entrance of Frontera. So the gate is this tall and Frontera fence is this tall, right? And I've been.
I was talking about the entrance to Frontera, which is a concern. The gate is this high and the fence is down here. And I'm an active person in terms of eradicating tagging and graffiti within the park. And I'd say there's tagging about every other day. And I think it's happening at night, and I think it's, because I see it in the morning, and then I take it off, and then I don't see it again until the next morning. So I think there are kids coming, adults, I don't know who are jumping over that lower fence and tagging. I just want to point that out.
Okay.
Thank you for your concern.
Okay, so everyone, we have come to, we've come and past 7:30. I want to thank you all for being here. I wanted to talk about pull-top cameras and a possible drone program through Ventura Canyon, but we'll leave that for another day. That was something that had come up with Captain Nassour. I actually wrote a report about it and put it up on our website. Conversation for another day, but I do thank you all. I know that was long. I know there were a lot of you. I'm grateful that you came. The meeting was recorded. We'll make it available for everybody and we'll follow up from here. And I thank you all for coming.
Hi.
How you doing, ma'am?
I'm Karen Ridgely, and I'm an area rep for the area